Revenge with Karen.
You know that sound a refrigerator makes right before the compressor dies? That faint, metallic click-hiss thud that tells you your groceries are about to become a science experiment. Imagine that sound magnified by 10,000, echoing off corrugated steel walls, mixed with the smell of ozone, burning friction belts, and the stale, desperate aroma of lukewarm breakroom coffee. That's my office. That's the symphony I've been conducting for 10 years. I'm Karen. The suits upstairs in the glass-walled offices. I'm legacy staff. To the HR department, I'm a line item regarding health insurance premiums for a woman in her 50s. But to this factory, this sprawling, screaming beast of automation that churns out automotive components 24 hours a day, I am the central nervous system. I am the lady they call when the line screams. I am the one they wake up at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning because a robotic arm has decided to interpret a weld command as interpretive dance, and production is bleeding $50,000 an hour. I'm not a manager. I don't have a title that includes the words vice president or director. I'm the person who wears steel-toed boots and a hoodie because it's freezing on the floor. The guys who make 3 times my salary walk around in wrinkle-free button-downs, pointing at screens they couldn't troubleshoot if their lives depended on it. By the way, before I get into how I accidentally on purpose melted down a multi-million-dollar facility, do me a favor. If you've ever been the one person in the office who actually knows how to unjam the copier while your boss takes credit for the report, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It helps the algorithm find us invisible workers, and honestly, it fuels my petness. Thanks. See, people think automation is just robots doing what they're told. It's not. It's a mood. It's a temperamental, living organism. This factory runs on a codebase that's been patched, stitched, and duct taped together over 15 years. It's a Frankenstein's monster of legacy Fortran, modern Python scripts, and vendor proprietary garbage that doesn't play nice with others. I'm the only one who speaks all the dialects. Most days, my job is invisible. If I'm doing it right, nothing happens. The conveyors hum at a steady B-flat. The pneumatic pistons hiss in a rhythmic 4/4 time. The scanners blink green. When the rhythm is right, I can literally feel it in the floorboards through the soles of my boots. It's a heartbeat. And just like a human heart, it has irregularities that only a cardiologist, or in this case, a tired, middle-aged woman with a caffeine dependency, can detect. I remember a Tuesday last month. The new plant manager, let's call him Chad, because he's definitely a Chad, the type who uses synergy as a verb, walked past my workstation. I was buried in a terminal window, rewriting a driver for a proximity sensor that had been acting twitchy. Karen, he said, not stopping, just slowing down enough to make sure I heard him. Let's make sure the visuals on the dashboard pop a bit more for the shareholders tour tomorrow. Less data, more green arrows. He didn't ask why the sensor was lagging. He didn't ask about the load balancing I'd been nursing all morning to prevent a blowout in Sector 4. He wanted green arrows. Sure, Chad, I said, my voice flat. I'll make it pop. He walked away, high-fiving a shift supervisor, kid barely 30 years old who I had to teach how to reset a breaker last week. They laughed about something, probably golf or crypto, completely oblivious to the fact that I had just manually rerouted a data packet collision that would have frozen the main assembly line. That's the gig. You're the IT auntie. You keep the kids from sticking forks in the electrical outlets. You wipe the noses of the servers when they get a virus. You clean up the mess when the innovators try to deploy an update without testing it first. You don't get the bonuses. You get to meet expectations on your annual review and a lukewarm slice of pepperoni pizza at the holiday party. But here's the thing about being invisible. You see everything. I see the login timestamps. I see the sloppy code the external contractors paste in from Stack Overflow. I see the efficiency experts trying to overclock the servos beyond their safety ratings to squeeze out an extra 0.5% yield. And most importantly, I see the rhythm. Over the years, I built something into the core of the system. Not a virus, not a trap, just a signature, a biometric rhythm kernel. See, when you work at the console level, the system learns you. It learns how fast you type. It learns the sequence in which you open menus. Learns that I always check the thermal readings before I authorize a startup. It learns my hesitation, my speed, my flow. It's a safety feature I designed after a near-fatal accident years ago, a way to ensure that only a calm, authorized expert could override the critical safety protocols. It's my heartbeat digitalized. The system trusts me. It knows my hands. It knows my mind. To Chad and the corporate restructure team that had been lurking around the conference rooms for weeks like sharks in cheap suits, I was just redundancy. I was a bottleneck. I was a salary that could be replaced by a subscription service or a fresh college grad who didn't argue about safety margins. I could feel the shift coming. The air in the control room felt heavy, static charged. The rhythm was off. Not the machine's rhythm, the human one. The way people stopped talking when I entered the break room. The way my access to certain budget spreadsheets was quietly revoked. I knew they were coming for me. I just didn't realize they were going to be stupid enough to try and take my life's work while they did it. They thought they were cutting out dead weight. They didn't realize they were about to perform open-heart surgery with a chainsaw, and they had just fired the only surgeon in the building. Hum of the factory floor is soothing to me, usually. But that morning, the Monday it all went down, the machines sounded different. They sounded hungry. Or maybe they just knew before I did that the master key was about to be pulled from the lock. It started with a calendar invite. Sync up 9 a.m. No agenda. Just me, Chad, and someone from HR named Brenda, who always smelled like vanilla body spray and bad news. I took a sip of my cold coffee, looked at the blinking cursor on my screen, and saved my work. All right, old girl, I whispered to the mainframe towers humming beside my desk. Let's see what they've got. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to teach them a lesson that no amount of LinkedIn learning courses could cover. The conference room, or the ideation suite, as Chad had rebranded it, was glass-walled, fishbowl style, right in the center of the production floor's mezzanine. This meant that while you were getting fired, you could look down and see exactly what you wouldn't be doing anymore. It was a special kind of corporate torture. I walked in at 8:59 a.m. Chad was there, leaning back in his ergonomic chair like he was posing for a stock photo labeled Visionary Leader. Brenda from HR was there, clutching a folder that was too thin to contain good news. And there was a third person, a kid. He looked about 22, was wearing a polo shirt that was tucked in too tight and a smartwatch that cost more than my first car. He had that eager, predatory look of someone who had just graduated with a degree in disrupting industries and had never actually touched a greasy machine part in his life. Karen. Promptness, I love it, Chad boomed. He didn't stand up. Take a seat. You know Brenda. And this, he gestured to the kid, is Tyler. Tyler is joining us from the Accelerated Leadership Program. Tyler nodded at me. Pleasure, ma'am. The word hit me like a wet towel. I'm 48, not 80. But to Tyler, I was clearly ancient history. I sat down, folding my hands on the table to hide the fact that they were trembling slightly. Not from fear, from a sudden, cold spike of adrenaline. So, Karen, Chad started, using his serious voice now. We're pivoting. The board wants a leaner, more agile approach to our automation infrastructure. We need to move away from legacy dependencies. He looked at me when he said legacy dependencies like I was a Windows 95 computer gathering dust in a basement. We're restructuring the department, he continued. Tyler here is going to be taking over the lead on the system's architecture. He's got fresh eyes, new certifications in cloud-based SCADA systems. We feel it's time for a generational handoff. I looked at Tyler. Cloud-based, I repeated. Chad, the latency on the cloud interface is 300 milliseconds. The robotic arms operate on a 4 millisecond tolerance. If you put them on the cloud, they'll punch through the chassis before the stop command even leaves the server. Chad sighed, a loud, theatrical exhale. See, this is the resistance to innovation we talked about, Karen. You're thinking in problems. Tyler thinks in solutions. It's not a problem, it's physics, I said, my voice tightening. Regardless, Brenda cut in, her voice sugary sweet. The decision has been made. Your position is being eliminated, effective today. There it was. 10 years, thousands of late nights, Christmas mornings, gone in a sentence. However, Chad added, grinning now, we're not monsters. We're giving you until noon to offboard. And specifically, we need you to do a knowledge transfer with Tyler. Show him the ropes. Give him the keys to the castle. I stared at him. Want me to teach him my job? In 3 hours, how hard can it be? Chad laughed, looking at Tyler. It's mostly monitoring, right? The system runs itself. Just show him the passwords, the daily checklists where the on button is. He chuckled at his own joke. Tyler smirked. It was a small, condescending smirk that said, don't worry, Grandma, I'll figure out your little puzzles. By noon, Chad commanded, checking his watch. Then you can turn in your badge. Got a severance package prepared, assuming the handover goes smoothly. The disrespect was so absolute, so suffocating, that for a second I couldn't breathe. He wasn't just firing me, he was erasing me. He was telling me that my decade of expertise, the complex neural network of logic and safety I had built, was something a frat boy could pick up between breakfast and lunch. Teach him everything, Chad said, standing up. Make him the expert. Something snapped inside me. It wasn't a loud snap, it was quiet. It was the sound of a safety latch disengaging. I looked at Chad. I looked at Tyler, who was already tapping on his phone, probably texting his buddies that he'd just bagged a management role. Okay, I said. The calm in my voice surprised even me. I'll teach him. I'll make sure he knows exactly how it works. Chad clapped his hands together. Excellent. That's the team player attitude I like to see. Tyler. Stick to her like glue. As we walked out of the fishbowl, I looked down at the factory floor. The robotic arms were dancing their violent, precise ballet. The conveyors were singing. They didn't know it yet, but their mother was leaving, and she was leaving them with a babysitter who thought they were just toys. I felt a cold, jagged smile forming on my face, not on my lips, but deep in my chest. "So," Tyler said as we walked toward the control room, his voice brimming with unearned confidence. "I bet you use a lot of command line stuff, huh? I'm going to migrate all that to a GUI by next week. Command lines are so retro." "Yeah," I said softly. "They sure are." He had no idea. He didn't know about the ghosts in the code. He didn't know about the rhythm. And he definitely didn't know that by noon, I wasn't just going to hand him the keys. I was going to change the locks, melt the keyhole, burn the instruction manual. If they wanted legacy gone, they were about to find out exactly what happens when the load-bearing wall decides to walk away. My workstation was a chaotic sanctuary. 3 monitors, a keyboard with the letters worn off the A, S, and E keys, and a stack of logbooks dating back to 2014. Tyler wrinkled his nose as he walked in, looking at the clutter like it was a health code violation. "Wow," he said. "Little messy, isn't it? First thing I'm doing is 5S'ing this place. Clean desk, clean mind, right?" "Right," I muttered, sitting down. "Pull up a chair, Tyler. Let's get you situated." He dragged a chair over, sitting too close, invading my personal space with the smell of expensive cologne and arrogance. "So," he said, pulling out a tablet. "Where's the documentation, the wikis? Please tell me you don't keep everything in those notebooks." "The system is the documentation," I said. "You need to know how to talk to it." "I know Python, C++, and Rust," he bragged. "I think I can handle a factory PLC." I turned to my screen. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was it, the moment of crossing the Rubicon. "Okay, Tyler, first things first, the authentication protocol." I opened a terminal window. To him, it looked like gibberish code scrolling past. To me, it was a conversation. I navigated to the deep kernel settings, directory labeled root/sys/bio kernel. This was the holy of holies. This was the module I had written 5 years ago after the incident, the module that monitored user behavior patterns. I quickly initiated a sequence. It was a subtle script modification. Remove user, Rebecca admin set auth mode, strict rhythm tolerance, 0.05%. "What are you doing?" Tyler asked, squinting at the screen. "That looks like. Are you deleting files?" "Just clearing my cache," I lied smoothly. "You don't want my old cookies clogging up your new workflow, do you?" "Good point," he nodded sagely. "Start fresh." I navigated to the authorization screen. Then I reached for a neon pink post-it note and a Sharpie. I wrote a single line of text on it. It wasn't code. It was meaningless. Sudo override key. 884xj99. I slapped the sticky note onto the bezel of the main monitor. "There," I said, pointing to it. "That's the master key." Tyler's eyes widened. "That's it? That's the admin code?" "It's a legacy backdoor," I lied, my heart hammering against my ribs. "If the system starts acting up, or if you get a lockout warning, you punch that into the command prompt. It tells the kernel that you're the super admin. But be careful. It's powerful." Laughed, actually laughed. "That's hilarious. You guys were running a $50 million line with a sticky note password? Security through obscurity, I guess." He took a picture of the post-it with his phone. "Got it. Memorized. Good," I said. In reality, the 884xj99 code didn't exist. If he typed it in, the system would recognize it as an invalid command. But that wasn't the trap. The trap was what I had just done in the background, removing my profile and setting the tolerance to strict. I had essentially lobotomized the system's ability to recognize a human operator, unless that operator moved, typed, and reacted exactly like me. The system tracked keystroke latency. It tracked how quickly the mouse moved from the alert banner to the acknowledge button. It tracked the microscopic pauses a human makes when thinking. I had trained the kernel to recognize my hesitation. My rhythm. Tyler didn't have my rhythm. He was twitchy. He was fast. He was aggressive. Every time he interacted with the console, the system would log a micro violation. It wouldn't stop him immediately. That would be too obvious. No, I had set a timer, a cumulative error counter. Once the system registered enough foreign interactions, enough erratic, non-Karen movements, it would assume the console had been hijacked by a virus or an intruder. And then it would initiate the immunization protocol. "Okay," I said, standing up and offering him the chair. "It's all yours, Tyler. You're the captain now." He sat down, spinning in the chair. He cracked his knuckles. "Awesome. Don't worry, Karen, I'll take good care of her. Probably optimize the throughput by 10% by Friday." "I'm sure you will," I said. Chad popped his head into the doorway, grinning like a shark. "How's it going? Knowledge transfer complete?" "Yup," Tyler said, pointing to the post-it. "She gave me the master key. We're golden." Chad looked at me, a smug satisfaction in his eyes. "See? I told you it wasn't that complicated. Thanks, Karen. We'll mail you your final check." "You do that," I said. I looked at the screen one last time. The biometrics demon was running silently in the background, watching Tyler's hands. It was already logging errors. Unknown user behavior. Rhythm mismatch. Confidence? 98%. I felt a strange mix of nausea and exhilaration. I wasn't just leaving. I was leaving a time bomb, and the detonator was Tyler's own arrogance. Well, I said, grabbing my purse. Good luck, boys. Try not to break anything. We're professionals, Karen, Chad said dismissively. We've got this. I walked out of the office. I didn't look back, but I could hear Tyler typing. Click, clack, click. Too fast, too hard. Tick-tock, tick went the bomb. Hours between 9 a.m. and noon were a masterclass in malicious compliance. I stood behind Tyler, watching him navigate the dashboard like a toddler trying to fly a fighter jet. So, these red flashing lights here, Tyler pointed at the Sector 7 pressure variance. That's bad, right? It's just noise, I said. The sensors in Sector 7 are old, they drift. Usually I just ignore them unless they turn purple. They never turned purple. That wasn't a thing. The sensors were drifting because the hydraulic fluid needed topping off, something I usually did remotely at 10 a.m. Today, I didn't mention it. Got it. Ignore red lights. Efficient, Tyler muttered, swiping the notification away without reading the error log. I watched him optimize things. He found the conveyor speed settings. Why is this set to 85%? The motors are rated for 100%. Because of the vibration harmonics, he said softly. If you go over 90%, the chassis starts to resonate and it throws off the laser welders. That sounds like a hardware problem, not a software problem, Tyler scoffed. He bumped the slider up to 95%. Let's push the envelope. Below us, on the floor, the hum of the line pitched up a semitone. A subtle, whining grind began to underscore the usual rhythm. Hear that? I asked. Hear what? The sound of productivity, he smirked. I saw Joe, one of the senior floor shift supervisors, walking past the glass. He looked up at the control room, his face pale. He heard it. He knew that sound meant the bearings were heating up. He caught my eye. I kept my face blank, stone cold. Joe paused, looked from me to the preening kid in my chair, and shook his head slightly. He kept walking. Smart man. He knew when to duck and cover. Hey, what's this biokernel process running in the background? Tyler asked, hovering his mouse over the task manager. It's using up 2% of the CPU. I should kill it to free up resources. My heart stopped. Don't, I said a little too quickly. I forced myself to relax. That's the legacy driver for the system. If you kill it, the server room overheats. God, this system is bloated, he groaned. Fine, I'll leave it for now. But next week, I'm purging all this junk. Sure, I said, next week, if you make it to next week. Every click he made was wrong. He double-clicked single-click icons. He used keyboard shortcuts that didn't exist. He dragged windows aggressively. I could picture the code running deep in the logic gates. Warning, user keystroke velocity exceeds safety parameters. Warning, user navigation logic does not match profile Rebecca. Warning, intruder alert level 15%, 20%. You know, Tyler said, leaning back and putting his hands behind his head. I really think you guys were overcomplicating this. It's just inputs and outputs. It's not rocket science. It's not, I agreed, it's automation. And automation hates surprises. I love surprises, he grinned. Disruption drives growth. The clock on the wall ticked to 11:55 a.m. Well, Tyler, I said, I think you know everything I know. Yeah, I think I've got a handle on it, he said, not even looking at me. Thanks for the, whatever, the passwords. Lose that post-it, I reminded him. Yeah, the master key, I got it. I gathered my things, my personal mug, a framed photo of my dog, the spare sweater I kept on the back of the chair. Karen, Chad appeared in the doorway again. Punctual as an executioner. It's noon, I'm going, I said. I looked at the screen one last time. The telemetry graph for the robotic arms in Sector 4 was starting to show microtremors. Vibration from Tyler's 95% speed boost was starting to destabilize the welding tips. Is there anything else we need to know? Chad asked, checking his phone. Nope, I said. Tyler has the rhythm now. I walked out. As I passed the threshold of the control room, I felt a physical severance. It was like unplugging an umbilical cord. The noise of the factory floor washed over me, louder now, more chaotic. The harmony was gone. It was just noise. I walked past the break room, past the safety posters, past the Employee of the Month plaque from 2012 that still had my name on it. I wasn't sad anymore. I was terrified, and I was angry, and mostly I was curious. I wondered how long it would take for the building to realize that the person driving the car was blindfolded. As I walked to my car in the blistering heat, the sounds of the factory fading behind me, my mind snapped back to a night 4 years ago. Night the biokernel was born. It was 2 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. I was covering a shift for a guy whose wife had gone into labor. The plant was running a high-priority order, brake calipers for a major SUV launch. The system we used back then was looser, less secure. We had remote access ports open for vendors. I was dozing in the chair, watching the screens through half-open eyes, when I saw it. The cursor on the main control moved. It wasn't touching the mouse. I sat up, adrenaline flooding my veins. The cursor drifted to the safety override menu. It wasn't a glitch. It was purposeful. Someone had remote accessed the system. Hey, I shouted to the empty room, slamming my hand on the kill switch for the external internet connection. But I was too late. The command had been sent. Disable proximity sensors, Sector 2. Sector 2 was where the heavy stamping presses were. And right at that moment, I knew, because I knew the schedule, that a maintenance crew was inside the cage changing a die. If the sensors were disabled, the press wouldn't know they were there. It would cycle. It would come down with 500 tons of force. I didn't think. I didn't type. I didn't try to counterhack. I physically ran. I sprinted out of the control room, vaulting over the railing, screaming into my radio. Stop. E-stop. Get out. Get out. I hit the manual emergency floor breaker. Big red button on the pillar, just as the press began to hiss, preparing to descend. The hydraulics whined and died. The massive steel head stopped 6 inches from the maintenance foreman's helmet. Silence, then shouting. It turned out to be a disgruntled ex-contractor in a basement in Jersey, drunk and trying to mess with the settings. He didn't know people were inside. The fallout was massive. Corporate wanted to bury it. Near miss, they called it. Didn't want the shareholders to know that their multi-million-dollar safety system could be turned off by a guy with a laptop and a grudge. They asked me to fix it. Make it unhackable, the VP had said, sweating through his shirt, so I did. I stayed awake for 36 hours straight, rewriting the core authorization module. I realized that passwords could be stolen. Keys could be copied. But behavior was unique. I wrote the biometric rhythm kernel. I coded it to analyze the user's interaction in real time. It wasn't just about knowing the password. It was about being the operator. It required a specific cadence of inputs, a specific flow that only a trained, authorized human would have. Any deviation, remote lag, bot-like speed, or erratic panic would trigger a lockout. But I did one more thing. I was angry. I realized I was the only thing standing between these men and lawsuits that would bankrupt them. So when the legal team sent over the new employment contracts regarding intellectual property, I added a clause. A tiny, boring-looking addendum in the specialized proprietary development section. Clause 14b, the employee, Karen S., retains ownership and licensing rights to any custom heuristic kernel modules developed for personal authentication safety, hereinafter referred to as the rhythm kernel. Usage of said kernel is granted to the company on a revocable license basis, contingent upon the employee's active supervision. The lawyers didn't read it. They just wanted the problem solved. They signed it. They bragged about the new AI-enhanced safety protocols in the newsletter. They gave me a $500 gift card to Best Buy. I bought a new monitor with the gift card, and I kept the signed contract in a fireproof box in my closet. Now, sitting in my scorching hot car, gripping the steering wheel, I thought about Clause 14b. They hadn't just fired me, they had fired the license holder. Technically, legally, and functionally. The moment I was terminated, their license to use the rhythm kernel expired. And without my active supervision, without my hands on the keyboard, the kernel was programmed to default to its original state, defense mode. It wasn't sabotage. It was copyright protection. I started the car. The ACE blasted hot air into my face. Hope you read the fine print, Chad, I whispered. The drive home was a blur of strip malls and cornfields. I stopped at a gas station and bought a pack of cigarettes, even though I had quit 3 years ago. I didn't smoke one. I just held the pack, feeling the sharp corners against my palm, a talisman of bad decisions. When I got to my small ranch house, the silence was deafening. Usually, this time of day, I'd be in the thick of the after-lunch slump firefight, rerouting power loads and yelling at vendors. Now, it was just me and the humming of my own refrigerator. I put my box on the kitchen table. The Employee of the Month plaque slid out and hit the floor with a hollow thwack. I made coffee, strong, black. Then I sat down at my personal laptop. I wasn't an idiot. I didn't have a direct backdoor into the factory controls. That would be illegal. But because of the licensing agreement, I had a telemetry read-only node. It was a dashboard I used to monitor the kernel's health from home during weekends. It couldn't send commands, but it could receive data. I logged in. The screen filled with graphs, the factory's heartbeat. For the first hour, it was deceptively steady. Tyler hadn't broken anything major yet. The throughput was up to 105%. He was still redlining the motors. Temperature gauges in Sector 4 were climbing into the yellow zone. Then, at 2:15 p.m., I saw the first spike. Event, unrecognized input sequence. Source, main terminal. User, Tyler admin simulated Tyler was trying to do something complex. Probably a batch update. Error, rhythm mismatch. Latency too low. Command rejected. I could visualize it. Tyler typing a command. the system ignoring it, Tyler getting frustrated. Typing it again harder. Vent repetitive input detected. Aggression marker elevated. The kernel was getting suspicious. It was thinking, why is Karen hitting the keys so hard? Why is she moving the mouse in jerky circles? Is she under duress? Is this a bot? I took a sip of coffee. Don't force it, kid, I murmured at the screen. You have to ask it nicely. At 2:45 p.m., the phone rang. It was a text from Joe, the floor supervisor. Joe, hey, system is acting weird. Keeps lagging. It is sweating bullets. You changed the password? I didn't reply. Then a voicemail from Chad. Hey Karen, just a quick one. Tyler is trying to run the shift change report and the system is freezing. It's giving some error about biometric dissonance. We figure you probably left a setting on. Give us a call back ASAP. Thanks. His voice was casual, breezy. He thought it was a toggle switch. He thought I could just tell him, oh, press F5. Didn't realize that the system was currently analyzing Tyler's soul and finding it wanting. I watched the screen. The intruder confidence meter climbed from 40% to 65%. At 75%, the system would enter lockdown level 1, slowing down production to preventing damage. At 90%, lockdown level 2, halting all non-essential subsystems. At 100%, well, that was the system wipe. The scorched earth protocol would wipe the logic controllers to prevent the intruder from stealing proprietary data. It would brick the factory to save the secrets. I sat there, watching the percentage climb. 66%, 68%, I felt a pang of guilt. The operators on the floor, Joe, the guys in the welding cages, they didn't deserve this. They needed their paychecks. But then I remembered the ma'am. I remembered the glass wall. I remembered legacy staff. Let it burn, I whispered. I didn't mean it, not really. I just wanted them to sweat. I wanted them to know that the invisible woman was the only reason they had lights on. I waited. The phone rang again. It was Chad. I let it go to voicemail. By 3:30 p.m., the breeze in Chad's voice was gone. I listened to the third voicemail. Karen, pick up the phone. The line in Sector 3 just stopped. It's not responding to manual overrides. Tyler says the code you gave him, the post-it note, isn't working. It says invalid command. Stop playing games. We need the real code. Now, I laughed, a dry, hacking laugh. The real code, I mocked. The real code is 10 years of muscle memory, you absolute pinecone. On my telemetry screen, the factory was starting to seize. The graph for Sector 3 flatlined. The robotic arms had frozen mid-swing. The rhythm kernel had determined that the user, Tyler, was behaving erratically enough to be a threat to physical safety. It had cut power to the kinetic drivers. I could see the error logs flooding in. User panic detected. Keystroke frequency, 400 CPM, erratic mouse vectoring. Tyler was mashing the keyboard. He was panicking. Then the first big domino fell. The main conveyor loop, the spine of the factory, jerked to a halt. I saw the telemetry data. Emergency stop triggered by system kernel. Reason, unverified operator. My phone blew up. Texts from Joe. Texts from random coworkers I hadn't spoken to in years. Joe, whole line is down. Chad is screaming at the kid. Kid is crying. What did you do? Lol. Sarah, accounting. Why are the lights flickering in the office? I finally picked up the phone when Chad called for the 5th time. Hello, I answered, sounding groggy like I'd been napping. Karen, Chad screamed. I could hear alarms blaring in the background. It sounded like a submarine dive. What did you do to the system? It's locked out. It's saying biometric error. Oh, hi, Chad, I said calmly. I didn't do anything. I gave Tyler the handover. Remember, by noon, the code, he yelled, the post-it code. It doesn't work. Did he type it in right? I asked. It's case sensitive. Yes, he typed it in. It says invalid. And now the screens are turning red. I said. That's strange. The system must not recognize him. Fix it. I can't, Chad. I'm not an employee. I don't have access. It would be a security violation. I am authorizing you, he shrieked. I am ordering you. You fired me, Chad. You can't order me to do anything. And besides, I'm busy. Busy doing what? Enjoying my severance. You said to enjoy my time off. I hung up. My heart was racing. It was petty. It was dangerous. But God, it felt good. But then I looked at the screen. The intruder confidence hit 85%. The system was preparing for the final stage. The wipe. If that happened, the PLC logic, the brains of the robots, would be erased. It would take months to reprogram. The factory would miss its contracts. They would lose millions. People, real working people, would lose their jobs when the plant closed. The fun was over. Now it was a hostage situation. And I was the one holding the detonator, even if they were the ones who pulled the pin. I stared at the 88% on my screen. Okay, Karen, I told myself, let it go too far. But then I saw a new notification pop up. Admin override attempted. Source, external IP. They had called in the expensive external consultants, the cybersecurity guys. Oh no, I said, don't touch it. If they tried to brute force the kernel, it would interpret it as a hostile attack. It would skip the countdown and jump straight to the wipe. I grabbed my phone. I needed to stop them before they committed suicide by keyboard. Intruder confidence meter hit 95%. On my screen, the text turned from yellow to a pulsing, angry crimson. Threat detected, unauthorized rhythm. Countermeasures engaged. System wipe initiated, T-minus 30:00 minutes. The countdown started. My phone rang. It wasn't Chad. It was a number I recognized, the area director. The big boss. The guy Chad reported to. I answered. Karen, his voice was shaking. This is David. We have a situation. I know, David, I said. I can see the telemetry, the screens. They say system wipe. Karen, tell me this is a joke. Tell me this is some kind of parting shot. It's not a joke, David. It's the biometric rhythm kernel. I built it in 2019. Remember the safety protocol? The one you guys signed off on? I don't recall the specifics, he stammered. Well, your lawyers do. Clause 14b. System is designed to lock out anyone who isn't me. It thinks Tyler is a hacker. And now that you've got external consultants poking at it, it thinks it's under attack. It's going to scrub the memory to protect the IP. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Stop it, he begged. Turn it off. I can't turn it off, David. I'm not authorized. My credentials were revoked at noon. If I try to log in now, it'll just accelerate the wipe. What do you want? Asked. The desperation was palpable. I don't want anything, I said, leaning back in my chair. I just wanted to do my job. But you guys decided a post-it note was cheaper than experience. Karen, please, the line is stopped. We're losing $10,000 a minute. If the wipe happens, we're done. The whole plant is done. I looked at the timer. 24:00 minutes. I thought about Joe. I thought about the single moms working the assembly line. Okay, I said I can stop it. But we need to have a conversation. A real one, not a knowledge transfer, a business negotiation. Anything, David said, name it. Put Chad on the line, I said. He's right here. Speakerphone. There was a rustle. I'm here, Chad whispered. He sounded broken. Chad, I said pleasantly. How's the legacy dependency looking now? Karen, please, he croaked. Fix it. I need you to listen very carefully, I said, because the meter is running. I am the owner of the biometric kernel. You are currently using my software without a license. That is a violation of intellectual property law. If that wipe happens, not only do you lose the factory, but I will sue you for the destruction of my proprietary code. Silence. Here are my terms, I said. 1, the wipe stops. 2, I come back, but not as an employee, as a consultant. My rate is triple my old hourly wage. Guaranteed 2-year contract. Done. If it said immediately. 3, I continued. I work remotely. I'm not stepping foot in that building unless I want to. I will manage the kernel from here. Fine. Done. And 4, I paused. Chad, yes, Chad whimpered. You're going to write a formal apology to me and to the team, admitting that you endangered the facility by removing safety personnel without due diligence. And then, well, David, I don't think I can work with a manager who lacks vision, do you? If it didn't hesitate. Chad is relieved of command effective immediately. He can pack his box. I heard a sharp intake of breath from Chad, but he didn't argue. He knew. Okay, I said, send over the contract. You have 20 minutes. I'll have legal email it now, David said. Good. Once I have the signature, I'll log in. And David, tell the consultants to take their hands off the keyboards. If they press one more key, the timer jumps to 0. I'm stopping them now. If it yelled away from the phone, don't touch IT, I hung up. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the countdown. 18:00 minutes. My hands were shaking. I had just blackmailed a Fortune 500 company. No, I hadn't blackmailed them. I had just enforced the terms of service. The email arrived in 6 minutes. A PDF signed by David and the General Counsel. Consulting agreement. Karen S., Senior Automation Architect. Compensation, redacted, but let's just say it was enough to pay off my mortgage in a year. I opened the document, digitally signed it, and hit send. Then I turned to my telemetry screen. T-minus 11 o'clock minutes. I opened the command console. I didn't need a password. I needed the rhythm. I placed my hands on my keyboard. I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes for a second, feeling the ghost of the factory hum in my mind. I began to type. Wasn't just typing. It was music. Tap, 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 pause, slide, click. I entered the sequence to access the kernel. Root access request. The system paused. It analyzed the latency between the R and the O. It measured the pressure. Analyzing, I held my breath. Pattern recognized. Rebecca admin. Welcome back. The red text turned green. Wipe canceled, restoring normal operations. I typed in the command to reset the tolerance levels. Set tolerance, normal. Add user, Tyler intern restricted access. I watched the graphs. The flat lines began to spike upwards. The heartbeat returned. My phone rang. It was David. It's green, he breathed. The line is moving. The warnings are gone. You're welcome, I said, taking a sip of my cold coffee. Karen, David said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and terror. Thank you. Don't thank me, David. Just pay the invoice. Net 15. I hung up. I did go back to the factory the next day, or the day after. A week later, I had my first remote stand-up meeting. I sat in my kitchen, wearing my pajamas and a nice blouse, Zoom mullet style. I logged into the video call. David was there. Joe was there, winking at the camera. And Tyler was there, looking humble, terrified, and very quiet. "Okay, team," I said, my voice coming through the speakers in the control room where I used to sit. "Let's look at the Sector 4 variants." On my second monitor, I had the security camera feed for the lobby open. I saw a figure walking towards the exit. It was Chad. He was carrying a cardboard box. He looked older than he had a week ago. He walked past the receptionist, pushed open the glass doors, and stepped out into the parking lot. He stopped for a second, looking back at the building. I took a sip of fresh, hot coffee. "David," I said on the call, "think the system is running a little hot. Let's dial back the efficiency to 90%. We don't want to burn out the bearings, do we?" "Whatever you say, Karen," David said quickly. "You're the expert." "Damn right I am," I thought. I watched Chad get into his car and drive away. I had taught the intern my job. I had taught the manager a lesson. And I had taught the whole damn company that you don't mess with the heartbeat of the machine. Turns out, being invisible is a superpower. Until you decide to be seen. Then it's a weapon. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.